G'day YouTube, baubles on a lot here. Look at that. That is the critical thinking bit of my motoring cycle. And it's not normally a handheld object. However, yesterday, while setting out to town, after I'd closed the front gate, I got on the bike. We went about 10 metres, maybe 15 metres, when apropos of nothing, it started to make noises as if I had a stick bashing against the spokes. Clack, 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 clack. And the back wheel skidded to a stop, and we skidded to a stop going down the hill. And then there was no throttle response. And pushing it back up here, I had to take the battery out, and it took quite a long while because the motor was locked up. And I rang up the people at AE Bikes, Australian Electric Bikes at Revesby, and they said, disconnect those 3 wires there from the speed controller and see if you can push it around. Well, you can push it around as long as the speed controller is not talking to the motor. So this morning, I figured out how to get to those plugs, which involves taking the cover off the horn and taking the front mudguard off. And I succeeded in removing the speed controller. And now I'm about to go to town and send the speed controller to Sydney so that they can put it onto their bench and figure out what part of it has shit itself and whether they can fix it and send it back to me, in which case I think I might get them to send back a new one as well as the fixed one, and then I've got one in the shed for the next time this may happen. And I was very tempted to just ring them up and say, look, put one on the courier and it might even be here tomorrow. I could put it back in myself. But my son, the auto electrician and air conditioning mechanic, he said, don't do that. Some of the mobility scooters and stuff like that, if something shits itself in the motor, it fries your speed controller. So if your speed controller's fried and you just get a new one, $600, drop that in there, then the sick motor can fry the next speed controller. So wait until they've had a crack at it on their test bench and they know what's wrong with the old speed controller. 4,330 kilometres. And it's killed the speed controller, and we're on the heavy duty forks. But on the bright side, the people who sold me the bikes, AE Bikes at Revesby, they are interested in buying the old forks back with the oil seals that have never been put in because nobody here in town could figure out how to do them. And took the fork to Armidale, and the specialist bicycle mechanic who reckoned he knew all about it, yeah, he hasn't got the tools or the skills or the expertise or the know-how or whatever it takes. Whereas the people at AE Bikes, they're quite happy to get the, what would they have, probably 3,500 Ks on the forks, and brand new oil seals and no scratches or marks or dings. So yeah, very nice people to deal with. But I think I may be paying the price of being something of a slightly early adopter. I know there have been electric motorbikes around town for 10 years, but this is the first sting that any of the people who've been riding Saurons have ever seen. So you get that, roundabouts and swings. Isn't it a good thing that I've still got a fossil burner to fall back on? So there you go. That's what's happening here now, today. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. Dealing very well with an unexpected motorcycle trouble, because the way I look at it, if I had nothing go wrong on the driveway, I could have been anywhere on the way to town and had that same speed controller fry itself, and instead of having to push the thing with a locked up back wheel 70 metres, 50 to the front gate, and 20 on the other side of the front gate. I could have been at the Barilda front gate. I could have been halfway to town. What would it be like cruising along at 50 k's, checking the rear vision mirrors, riding between the guide rails where there's a metre of space between the double lines, and you've got trucks going one way and trucks going the other? How much fun would it be going along there and have the speed controller die and lock up the back wheel and make you try and skid to a stop in a straight line without getting run over by the truck that's going past? That would have been very difficult. Or maybe, perhaps, if I'd have gone to town at that time, I drove home in the rain after pushing the bike up here, climbing out of my leathers. Now, I ride home at dusk more or less regularly on the highway at dusk. I have had a few spits of raindrops on my helmet in the daylight. So unknown to me, I was getting set up to go to town and snooking myself into having to ride home at dusk in the rain on the highway. Having the speed controller fry itself in order to prevent me going and trying that combination after only like 120 hours or something riding experience. It could be a cheap speed controller at that price. Like I didn't hurt myself, and the bike can be fixed. Sometimes, when shit appears to be going surprisingly wrong, it might be a good idea to sit down and have a cup of coffee. And instead of feeling really shitty and cranky, be a bit happy about all of the bad shit that did not happen. All the other possible options and permutations which the exact same electromechanical failure could have caused had it happened just a bit later in the day, or had it not happened at all, and one finds oneself in a time and a place and a space on the planet that you just don't want to be, like riding home in the rain in the dusk. So there we go. That's my rationalisation for why I don't feel too bad about having probably a $600 or $800 day by the time the bloody thing's back together and going on the electric motorcycle. I didn't go into this intending to save money, so at least I'm not disappointed from that point of view. And for 10 months, I've been filling up the motor car once a month or once every 6 weeks instead of 2 or 3 times a month. And the most recent figure that dropped into my consciousness from out of the ether, somebody was talking on the radio, member of the Wentworth group, talking about environmental activism in Australia over the past 40 years, and I've been paying attention to it, so it was very interesting to me. I recognised all the waypoints and markers, and they just casually dropped into conversation the fact that in terms of how much energy all the plants on the earth capture from the sunlight and store as the products of photosynthesis, in terms of how much photosynthesis you have to do for how many years to equal the amount of energy in the fossil fuel that 8 billion of us are digging up and refining and burning and pumping back into the sky, we're using 1 million years worth of photosynthesis for every year that we're carrying on the way we are at the moment. It's not a case of, we're using 5 or 10 times as much energy as the Earth gets. No, we are extracting and employing 1 million years worth of energy in 12 months. So it's no bloody wonder we're making horrible changes to every system there is. In light of that, my little bit of electric motorcycling token marginalism or marginal tokenism, it's better than nothing. At least I'm fucking trying. And these are trying times. So, now I'm not going to show you my stash of bubble wrap, which I thought was in that car, and with which I was going to wrap up the speed controller and conclude the video. Not going to happen, and I'm not going to shoot the rest of the video in order to delete this blooper at the end. Such is life when you shoot in sequence to edit in camera. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. I'll pad the bloody thing with something else. Ciao.